Hey, what's up guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a $30 budget version of the Sacred Beast structure deck. So we're going to have a lot of Sacred Beast videos coming up soon. I'm going to have this video, we've already done an opening on the channel, I'm going to be doing some test hands, and I'm also going to be doing a competitive deck profile of this deck, which is going to be really, really fun, and I'm really excited for it, because this deck puts out some crazy damage output, which is insane. I mean, looking at just the front cover card of the entire deck, it has a 4,000 beat stick, which is awesome, and being able to summon this at 10,000 is insanely good. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can become part of the notification squad, and let's get straight on into this budget build. But before we do, I will mention you guys, don't forget to check out the Patreon, because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your inscription for every single video, getting a signed card sent into the mail, or even getting a requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you are a patron. So, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing one copy of the Raviel Lord of Phantasms Simmering Scraper. So this card is a new, awesome card. That basically what it does is the main effect of this card is that if this card is in your hand, that you can discard it if a Raviel is targeted. You can target a Raviel in your hand, and then for the rest of the turn, its attack becomes doubled by discarding this card from your hand, which is a really good effect. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute a monster to add this card back to your hand, which is really, really easy to do, and it's an awesome card to be able to put in your hand. Then we play two copies of Raviel Lord of Phantasms. Basically, it's a 4,000 beat stick that each time your opponent's normal summons a monster, you can special summon a Phantasm token. And then you can also tribute a Phantasm token or a monster on your side of the field. And then this card gains attack equal to the tributed monster's attack, so it can come pretty big, which is really good. Two copies of Haman, Lord of Striking Thunder. Lord of Striking Thunder is really good, or Haman's really good, because you have to tribute 3 face-up continuous spells you control to special summon this card, but you have other ways to summon this card besides that. And the same thing with Raviel, you have to tribute 3 Fiend monsters in order to summon it, but we have other ways of summoning them. You usually don't summon the Simmering Scraper, you just usually summon these two, and the Uriah. But what this card does is each time this card destroys a monster from a battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflicts 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. And while this card's in face-up defense position, monsters you control cannot be targeted for attacks except this one, which is really good. And then we play two copies of Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, which is my favorite of them all. The reason I'm playing this at 2 in this particular build is because it is a budget build, and this card is pretty decent, actually, especially with the Searing... the copy of Hyperblaze, which is really cool. And it also has the ability that you have to tribute 3 face-up traps you control to the graveyard, and then you get special summon this card, and it gains 1,000 attack for each continuous trap in your graveyard, and then once per turn, you can target a set spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy it, and they can't activate cards or effects in activation to that. So basically, it's like Night Beam popping it, which is pretty cool if you guys remember that card from Galactic Overlord, but it's really, really cool to be able to just pop something that's face down. Then we play 3 copies of Dark Summoning Beast, which is kind of like the OG Summoning Beast. But what this card does is it has the ability to tribute itself and then special summon a Uriah, Haman, or Raviel from your hand or deck, ignoring some of their conditions. And then also, monsters you control cannot attack for the rest of the turn, and you can only use the effect of it once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add a Uriah, Haman, or Raviel from your deck to your hand as well, so it gets you another copy from your deck to your hand, which can make summoning Armatile really easy. We then play just 2 copies of Chaos Core. I'm not a super big fan of Chaos Core. It does mill stuff to the graveyard, but I feel like a 2 of in the budget build is alright. When either player activates a card or effect that targets this face-up card, or when your opponent attacks it, you can send a Uriah, Haman, and a Raviel from your deck to the graveyard, from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, you get to place a Phantasm counter on this card for each card sent to the graveyard. And if you control, and if you place at least 1 on it, you take no battle damage for your rest turn, and you only use this effect once per turn. And if this card will be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can remove a Phantasm counter from this card instead, which is alright. I mean, it's not the craziest card in the world, but it's alright. Now, if you're talking crazy cards, we're going to talk about Dark Summoning Beast. This card's insanely good, and essentially is a 1-card Sacred Beast. Like, you essentially normal summon this card, add your copy of the Dark Summoning Beast from your deck to your hand, and you get an additional normal summon, which you can then normal summon out your Dark Summoning Beast, tribute it, and then go for a Raviel, Haman, or Uriah, and then banish the Dark Summoning Beast to add Haman, Uriah, or Raviel from your deck to your hand. Depends on which one you want to do. Usually it's going to be the copy of Raviel that you're going to summon out, though. But this card, when it's normal summon, you get to add 1 of the 3 from your deck to your hand, or a card that specifically lists one of them, like a Dark Summoning Beast, from your deck to your hand, and then during your main phase, you get an additional normal summon of a Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Chaos Summoning Beast. Now, I really, really like this card. What it does is you tribute Contribute this card to special summon Uriah, Haman, or Raviel from your hand, ignoring his summoning conditions, and you manage this card from your graveyard to add a Fallen Paradise from your deck to your hand, which is really, really, really good. I like that effect to be able to add Fallen Paradise from your deck to your hand. It's really awesome to be able to search it. And then we play 2 copies of Danger Chupacabra. This is kind of a card that I just kind of threw in here because, again, it's the budget build. But it helps you out with digging through the deck a little bit and getting a Fiend monster in your side of the field. So you reveal this card in your hand to randomly choose. Your opponent randomly chooses one, discards that card. They randomly choose one card in your hand, discards it, and if this card was not discarded, you special summon it, and if it was, and then you get to draw a card, and if it was discarded, you get to target a danger in your graveyard, except another copy of Chupacabra, and special summon it, but you don't play anything besides Chupacabra because they didn't give us any other dangers. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of 1-for-1 because it can get our Dark Summoning or our Chaos Summoning Beasts out on the field, which is really cool. I like that ability just to be able to instantly put one of them out on the field. It helps out a little bit. 2 copies of Cerulean Skyfire, which I really like this card as a 2-of in the deck, because if to special summon a Haman, you can use face down spells instead. So like if I want to set a copy of Desires, if I have 2 Desires in my hand, I can set one of the Desires if I activate this, and I can set like 2 spells face down along with this card and send them to the graveyard instead of having to send continuous, which is pretty cool. As far as I know the ruling. But this card also has the ability to, while you control an attack position of Haman, you can negate any spell and trap activated by your opponent and then change a Haman to defense position, and if a face-up Uriah, Haman, or Raviel you control leaves the field, you take no damage this turn as well, which, I mean, you're already not usually taking damage in this deck because everything is huge. We then play 3 copies of Dimension Fusion Destruction because I want to go into Armital in the budget version. So you might as well play 3 of this. I mean, why wouldn't you play 3 of this just to go in at your opponent with this card? It's really, really cool to be able to summon Armital. And it lets you fusion summon by banishing from your hand, field, and or graveyard, which is pretty good. It kind of comes in contact with the copy of your Chaos Core. It kind of helps out with that because if you have the Chaos Core and you get to send all 3 of them off the Chaos Core, then you can activate this and get it. But it's kind of one of those, I can normal summon out the Dark Summoning Beast if I have this in my hand, and then add the Chaos Core, and then normal summon out the Chaos Core, and if my opponent does decide to attack it or target it, then I'm going to get the effect off, which is pretty good. Then we play 3 copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates. Opening of the Spirit Gates, when this card is activated, you get to add a Uriah, Haman, or Raviel, or a monster that specifically lists one of those in its text from your deck to your hand. And then once per turn, you can discard a card to special summon a Fiend monster with 0/0 from your graveyard. And then once per turn, if you control a level 10 monster, then you can add a continuous spell from your graveyard to your hand, which is pretty good because it can add other copies of itself, or Cerulean Skyfire, which is pretty good. 3 copies of Pot of Desires. You don't have Allure of Darkness, so you play Desires. It really pains me to play 3 Desires, but it is the budget build. We are going to play 3 Desires in this deck because you need the Desires to draw out what you need out of the deck. And plus, there's no particularly one card that if I banish it, the game's over. I mean, if I banish my Simmering Scraper, which I play as a 1-of, it's not the end of the world. We then play 3 copies of Fallen Paradise. This is also a really good draw card. Your opponent cannot target Uriah, Haman, or Raviel, or Armital in your monster zone with card effects, and also those monsters cannot be destroyed by our opponent's card effects as well. So they can't be targeted and they can't be destroyed, which is pretty good. And then while you control them, if you control Uriah, Haman, or Raviel, or Armital in your monster zone, you can draw 2 cards as well, and you can only activate that effect once per turn. So essentially you get to draw 3 cards per turn. So when you get your draw phase, you get to draw, and then Fallen Paradise lets you draw 2 more on top of that, which is really good. I really love this card. You need to play this card at 3 of now. It is insane. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Hyper Blaze. I thought about bumping this up to 2 for the budget build, but I like it as a 1-of. The only thing I might drop is a copy of the Dark Factory of More Production or a Desires. I thought about dropping a Desires for this card, or for another one of these, but what it does is to special summon Uriah, you can send face down trap cards as well, which is really cool. And then once per battle, when an attack is declared involving Uriah, Lord of Searing Flames, you can send a trap card from your hand or graveyard, hand or deck to the graveyard, and then its attack becomes the number of face-up traps or traps in the graveyard times 1,000 for the rest of the turn. And then once per turn, you can discard 1 card to add from your hand, or special summon a Uriah, Haman, or Raviel from your graveyard, ignoring their summoning conditions. If you want to focus a little bit more around Chaos Core, play this card at 2. If you don't play this card at 2. Or if you want to mainly focus on Uriah, play this card at 2. If you don't worry about it. We then play 2 copies of Dark Factory of More Production. Dark Factory of More Production lets you send a monster in your hand or field to the graveyard to draw a card. It's a little slow because it is a trap card, but it's constant. So once you flip it, it's pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Awakening of the Sacred Beast, which is insane. This card is easily searchable, so I just play it as a 2 of in this particular build, but it has an ability that depending on which ones you have, Hammond, Uriah, or Raviel, up to the number of them you have in your field, it gains particular abilities. So the one effect is each time your opponent normal or special summons a monster, you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. 2, it basically becomes skill drain. Your opponent's activated effects of monsters are negated. And then any monster sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead for the 3 effect. And then once per turn, you can, if you control a level 10 monster, you can add a continuous trap from your graveyard to your hand, which can be your Hyper Blaze if it gets destroyed. So that's it for the traps, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. Before we get into the extra deck, I will mention you guys, this deck is the $30 budget build. Like, it's awesome that you can build this entire deck with $30. So, for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Armityle and 3 copies of the Phantasm Emperor. Phantasm Emperor kind of throws me off. I know it's a manga card, but you can actually put it in here, which is weird, and they actually include it in the structure deck. So basically, Armityle, during your turn, it can't be destroyed by battle, or anytime it can't be destroyed by battle, and it gains 10,000 attack during your turn. So basically, it's a 10k beat stick. That's pretty much all it does. And then the Phantasm Emperor is kind of neat because if this card is special summoned, or if upon another monster is special summoned from your graveyard to your field while you control this monster, you can target a card your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the original attack. So it's kind of weird, but I really would rather go for Armityle, but you didn't have anything else for the extra deck, so throw it in here. So that's it for the extra deck, guys. Let's get into the bonus stuff, which is the tokens. You do get tokens in each structure deck, so definitely make sure that you play your tokens, your Phantasm tokens, and your Phantasm Martyr tokens. These really do help out that you keep these with you when you're playing this deck, because Raviel makes tokens, and it is super nice to keep up with it. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a super fun deck, and it's super weird that this, like, I'm still not over the fact that they actually made a deck based around this. I hope they keep doing this, where they keep letting us vote for decks and actually listen and build decks that we want to see. Because this is something I'm sure that a lot of people saw this and got super hyped for and was like, yeah, I want that. So I'm excited for the Charmer one that's coming next. I think it's going to be really cool. But anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.